Welcome to Not Starving Artist, the podcast. I'm your host, Brooke Benson, money coach and equity actor. I am your financial cheerleader, here to help you build your financial confidence and have power over your money. The best part, no budgeting or bi-weekly paychecks required. I went from being a broke BFA grad having weekly panic attacks about money to a financially confident, wealth-building actor and business owner. Money gets to feel fun, simple, and sexy, and I am going to show you how. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I hope everyone is doing well amidst everything, and with what is happening this week with the LA fires and what just continues to happen throughout the world, it felt necessary to do an episode and talk about financial self-care, how to use your money to care for yourself during times of crisis, and also how to let money be a supporter for you during times of crisis. And this is going to expand beyond just like world crises, right? Or like climate crises, but also like if you are going through something specific, like let's say there is a death in the family, or you got laid off from your survival job or your main job, or you're just going through something emotionally, mentally. Like there are times in our life where we are not at baseline, where we are in crisis mode or survival mode, or things are just not going how we expected, or just life gets thrown at you, because that's what life does. And so during these times, it's easy for money to feel like she is at war with you, right? Or you have to black out and not think about your money in order to make yourself okay and be okay during these times. But what I want to talk about today is, one, how to make money actually feel like a supporter during these times, how to actually use money as a self-care tool, how to utilize her, and then also as we continue to move forward just in life, how you can prepare yourself so that your finances and your money can support you during times like these, okay? So the first thing I want to say, and what I want to start out with here, is compassion and money seasons. So if you all have not listened to the episode about money seasons, seasons of saving, seasons of spending, and seasons of sustaining, those are the three money seasons. I talk about it in a previous podcast episode. One of them is called The Myth About Saving Money, and one is called Money Seasons, I believe. I'll link the episode in the show notes so you can listen to that if you haven't yet. But to boil it down, the money seasons are just that: season of saving, season of spending, and season of sustaining. So what does that actually mean? Being in a season of saving means you are bringing in more than you're spending and you're able to put money away. A season of sustaining is a season where what's coming in is exactly what's going out. You're sustaining, you're recalibrating, maybe you moved and you're trying to get in touch with the new cost of living. That's a season of sustaining. And then a season of spending is when what's going out is more than what's coming in. So this is usually a period where you are in between incomes, in between jobs, or you are like making a big purchase, a big move. Like I had a client move to London recently when my partner and I moved to New York City. My sister is currently in the middle of a job search, right? Like these sorts of things would be when you're in a season of spending. And so when we're thinking about these money seasons, why I want to name those money seasons is because it's easy to feel like if you are utilizing your money during a time of transition, change, crisis or not, during a time when you need to utilize that money, it behooves you to figure out how to not feel guilty about spending that money that the version of you who is in a season of saving put aside specifically for times like this. So when we're talking about times of crisis, I have seen so many people not utilize their emergency money when they are in a literal emergency. Because in your head, you might feel like there's an emergency around the corner, right? Or because I'm not like flailing and screaming in the middle of this crisis, it means it's not a good enough emergency to be able to use my money for. So I want you to know, and again, I have the LA fires on my brain, right? Because so many of you all are based in LA. My sister's out there, right? Like my heart is just breaking for every single person who is out there having to witness it right now. And just collectively, all of us having to grieve what's happening to the earth and the houses and the people. God, it's just so fucking sad. So during those times, if you are there, right? And maybe you're not in an evacuation zone, but you are near enough to an evacuation zone that it makes you a little anxious, and you really want to go put yourself in a hotel down south for the week just to be able to have some peace and some ease. Like maybe your dogs are really freaked out by like the smoke that's outside and like they haven't been able to sleep, and you want to go give your dogs an oasis alongside yourself, right, in a hotel. But it's like, but I could stay here. I don't technically need to leave yet. Do I really want to spend that money? Is it really an emergency? My God, just go put yourself in a hotel and use your emergency money. That is what this money has been put aside for emergencies, for you to utilize when you need to give yourself peace and ease. This is why I actually don't recommend calling it an emergency fund. I want you to call it something else, because when we label a fund like this an emergency fund, your brain will always tell you that there's a bigger emergency down the road that you're going to need that money for, and it's bad if you spend it. Unless you are, again, literally screaming and flailing, running out of your house because the fire is right there. Like, no. I want you to call this money, I call it an opportunity fund. I think that has a much lighter connotation, where if I want to use this money to give myself something that I not like necessarily need because it's an emergency, but I want the opportunity to put myself in a hotel for a week if I'm close to an evacuation zone and it's making my anxiety high, right? Like that is a valid reason. So even just switching how you label your savings is going to have an impact on how you feel when you utilize them and spend them. Okay. So this brings me to another tactical thing. This is why it's important to split up your savings. Because when you have money set aside for emergencies or your opportunity fund, when you have money set aside, that's like 3 months ahead on bills. You have 3 months of living expenses sitting in your bank account, which those two are different. Being 3 months ahead on bills is different than like opportunity and emergency money. Okay, so you have 3 months of bills, but then you also have like the fun money. You've got the travel money. You've got the headshot money. You've got the medical bill money. You've got the vet bill money, right? You have all of these different buckets so that when you're utilizing them, what it does to your body is you're like, yes, that's the label that I am utilizing right now. And I know it's not bleeding into these other funds that I want to use later. Like there's a clarity that comes and an ease that comes from knowing what you're spending on was put aside for that exact reason, okay? And so being in a season of spending, now going back to seasons, right? You might be in a rebuilding season. So I'm gonna like pull us away now from the LA fires, because again, that's just where my brain has been this week. But let's say, right, you've just made a big move. You might be in a season of spending when you're like furnishing your apartment and you've just put the security deposit down, right? And maybe you're adjusting to a new cost of living in a higher cost of living city. You might be in a season of spending for a minute. And then being in a season of sustaining, not even necessarily saving yet. When you're calibrating, you might just be spending everything that's coming in and you're just at baseline. Great. Then once you get comfortable there, once your nervous system has calibrated to the new change that you have adjusted to, then you can move into a season of saving, right? Or maybe you're just, this happened to my partner when he got his new job. He was just so thankful to have a paycheck again that he was just enjoying having a paycheck. So he was in a season of sustaining for a few months because the joy and the ease that was bringing him was so much more important than immediately getting back into a season of saving, right? And now he's got his, and look, there's a thumbs up up right there if you're watching on YouTube. I need to figure out how to get iOS to turn that thing off. I don't understand how I turn that setting off, but it needs to happen. Those of you, it's the thumbs up bubble, right? Or the balloons that randomly pop up behind the screen. My God. So anyway, that was more important for him than like rushing into a season of saving, because you're always going to float into a new season. But the whole point of me saying all of this is that I want you to be having so much compassion for yourself if that's where you are, rather than being mad that you're not in a season of saving. Being mad that you have to utilize the money that you put aside to be able to use in times such as these. No, compassion, guilt-free spending, right? That is what your savings are there for. And as long as you continue to remember that there's always another season around the corner, that you're constantly looking ahead to when is the next season going to come, and being honest with yourself, is there another season around the corner? And if not, then something needs to change. Can I foresee when this season shifts into a season of sustaining or a season of saving? If not, something needs to change. But you can ask yourself those questions. But again, having compassion right now, if you need to utilize money in your bank account, if you are in a time of crisis, and maybe even saying time of crisis feels heavy, if you're in a time of transition, in a time of change, right? Utilizing your money is never a bad thing, okay? So now what I want to talk about is self-care, like actually using your dollars for self-care. Because what we were just talking about was the kind of self-care that's that day-to-day compassion for where you currently are and not being mad at yourself and not being mad at where you currently are, right? Like being okay, being where you're at. That's that less fun self-care, right? Like everyone talks about self-care, and a lot of times it's, you know, the bubble baths and the face mask and the naps and the whatever it is, like taking yourself shopping or taking yourself to a spa. But like there is this larger conversation where it's like, self-care is less cute. Real self-care is harder and messier. And so what we were just talking about was having to continually give yourself compassion and permission to use your money during these times. That's like the baseline foundations of financial self-care. But now let's talk about like the more micro. So being able to utilize your money, spend your money in ways that support yourself. So maybe, right, it is like getting yourself a hotel, right? If you're out in LA right now and you need to get out, especially if you're evacuated. But like even if you're not in an evacuation zone, going and getting yourself that. But maybe it's you know, your anxiety got really high, or your like depression hit you like a fucking train and you weren't expecting it. And so the only way you can feed yourself is by ordering takeout for the week. Like, let's not be mad at your mental health and make your mental health worse, because now instead of just dealing with the depression that hit you this week, right, and that resurfaced, you're piling on like, well, now you can't, now all your groceries are going bad, and you're like trying to force yourself to cook at home and eat, but you're like having such a hard time even like going to the kitchen to put something in your mouth, and the only thing that's exciting to you is getting DoorDash from down the corner. Like, can we give you some compassion there and let yourself use your money? Maybe you spend a little bit more this month because you're needing to care for yourself when a mental health thing pops up, right? So that's an example. Another example of financial self-care is, especially during, I mean, again, I'm out here in New York, right? My sister's in LA. It's really hard for me to be far away from her and know that she's out there, right? Like being triangulated in these fires. And not just my sister, but watching everything out there. I'm like, fuck, it is hard just to work, right? Like sit down and write my little emails, get on my little Instagram, come on here, record a podcast. I mean, this podcast, I had a different thing planned for this podcast this week, but I was like, this is the thing that feels like I need to talk about this week. But when I'm having a week like this, where my anxiety is elevated, right? Watching this stuff elevates my anxiety, and having to still show up to work and still want to show up to work, but I'm needing to give myself more than I usually would. For example, needing to go out and work at a coffee shop every single day this week. I don't normally do that, but like going to a coffee shop and getting myself just like such a delicious cup of coffee, being around other human beings, especially like my neighborhood. There's a lot of actors and creatives here. So when I go to the coffee shop in my neighborhood, I just like am surrounded by creativity, people talking about projects, people talking about their art, people talking about the world. There's such like a communal feeling that I feel being there. So yes, I'm spending $6 or $7 on a coffee every single day, sometimes twice a day to work at a coffee shop. But this week, that's what is required for me to keep showing up and moving forward, right? So sometimes it's those little dopamine hits, even like getting yourself, and I know I just was like, baths and spa time is like, soft self-care, right? There's different bigger levels of self-care, but sometimes a daily bath, I have a daily bath practice, right? Like having a bath with like some nice bath bombs to unwind at the end of the day, maybe that's what you need this week. Or maybe that's what you need, like, to go get yourself some fun toys. Like, remember that we're all just fucking kids in these grown-up bodies. Sometimes you just need a toy, right? Or like the rest of this afternoon, after I finish recording this and upload it and get it ready to post this week, I'm taking the rest of the afternoon off and I'm gonna scrapbook. I'm gonna sit down on my floor, and I just got some really fun new stickers, and my partner got me some scrapbooking paper for Christmas, and I had all my pictures printed, right? And I'm gonna have a craft afternoon sitting on the floor, scrapbooking, grounding, like looking through my memories, and that's gonna be a really beautiful way for me to continue to move through this day and not end up in bed ridden with the weight of the world and what's happening, right? So using your money then in the micro level of like, what little things can you go spend money on that will keep you moving forward, okay? And then this is where I want to enter into the conversation, soothing versus avoiding, okay? Soothing versus avoiding. So the things I was just talking about these are all ways that I am soothing myself and kind of like giving myself a, like cradling and rocking a baby. Some of these things that are like those micro practical things are like me sitting and rocking myself, right? Me going and getting craft supplies so I can go craft, sitting in the bathtub with a nice bath bomb, going to a coffee shop and sipping a delicious warm drink. Like these are metaphorical hugs and rocks and cradles that I'm giving myself. That's soothing. But then I want you to be aware that when it starts to tip into avoidance, right? And when it tips into numbing, because it can very easily tip into avoidance and numbing, which is you're just like not, in order to avoid thinking about these things and feel your feelings, right? You are eating out all the time. You are not looking at your bank accounts because you feel guilty about spending. So you're just going to go into a blackout. You're shopping to give you the dopamine hits that you desire. You're booking a vacation with your friends that you don't fully know if you can afford, but you just need something to look forward to. There is this like avoidant blackout energy that is easily justified by saying I'm soothing, I'm taking self-care of myself financially. But what's happening is, and how you can tell if you've tipped into avoidance is because it usually comes from a blackout. Or it comes from YOLO fuck it energy, kind of like closed eyes. I'm just going to press submit payment and I'm just like not going to worry about it. So there is this avoidance that comes along with that kind of quote unquote financial self-care that's not really self-care, because when you've divorced yourself from feeling something about your money, you've moved into blackout energy. And so what I want to be clear about in this episode is that using your money to support yourself during times of crisis should come from full awareness of how it's affecting your bank account. What that means is I am going to sign off on the fact that I am spending more money this month eating out or getting coffee or doing a little bit more shopping. And I know exactly how much more I'm spending because I'm checking in on my bank accounts every couple of days. And every couple of days when I'm checking in on my bank account, I'm saying, I love that I have the ability to spend more money this month. I love that I got to take myself out to eat last night, because that was the one thing that I was looking forward to that day when I had a really hard day, right? Or I loved that I that I have this money available to me. I see how much it's increasing my bills, but I am aware of it and I'm saying yes. I'm signing off on it. I'm putting my seal of approval on it rather than like closed eyes, swipe the card, financial self-care, swipe it. My money's here to support me. But then what's going to happen is if you are in a blackout doing that and justifying it as financial self-care, when you go to look at your bank account at your next financial CEO party, you're going to have a panic moment. You're going to throw your nervous system off because you're going to be surprised by what you see. And because you didn't say yes and give it your seal of approval, you might add more guilt and shame onto the pile of the weight you're already carrying. So I want you to do financial self-care in full awareness of your money and your bank accounts, okay? So being aware of when it's soothing and when it is avoiding. So now, this is where I want to bring into the conversation feeling your feelings, because spending can also be a way to numb and avoid feeling the shit that's coming up. Right? So I think as we move forward, I've definitely felt this over the past 12 months, basically. I mean, a little longer than that. But over the past year, I have found myself needing to physically feel and move through emotions, heavy emotions, way more than usual. So like I am innately a feeler and I'm innately a crier. That is my superpower. I love that my body knows how to feel through deep emotions because I feel everything so deeply, so wholeheartedly. And I love that my body knows how to process that. But recently, just like as the world is moving forward, there is more and more of that needed. And so that has come with me having to come to terms with, I just need to process more. And over the past year, I found myself moving, like not letting myself feel as much as I needed to, because I was like, this is too much, right? And sometimes the weight of the stuff that I'm feeling feels way too much to feel. And I'm afraid to feel it. And I'm afraid that it's going to make my anxiety worse. And I'm afraid of all these things, right? But then what happens is I move into numbing and I move into avoidance. And for a lot of us, that can manifest as then just spending and going into YOLO fuck it mode and then not getting a lot of return on that investment on whatever you are spending on. So having a practice or being aware of when your body needs to move through something so that you don't automatically go to just buying something on Amazon to give you that hit that you need that like covers up the thing you actually needed to feel. So for me, what that looks like is my body usually tells me like I need to cry. Like there's something that comes up in my throat and I like feel like maybe I need to cry, but sometimes it's inconvenient, right? Like it happened on the middle of an Instagram live the other day, right? Where I like felt this need to cry and I let it happen, right? Because I was like, I don't want to shove emotions down. But when I start to feel that, This is my practice for purging through an emotion. It literally feels like I need to throw it up. So I like sit on the floor and I just let my body feel it. And sometimes I cry. Sometimes I'm just sitting in silence and just like letting my body like go through whatever it needs to go through. But I don't pick up my phone. I don't try and go spend something. I don't like reach for anything else. I reach for silence and I reach for myself. Or I go on a walk. Yeah. And so what I'm doing is I'm putting a pause between a feeling and the discomfort and then having to take action on the feeling, because sometimes action isn't needed. So as hard as it may feel, that is something that is a way of financial self-care, because financial self-care is spending money on things that actually support you and not spending money on things that don't. So sitting and feeling through your feelings, having a practice for that, noticing your body's cues when it needs to feel something. So for you, it might be totally different. For me, it's usually crying and it's something that feels stuck in my throat. That's my body's cue that I have something I need to feel through. Or my anxiety, like my heart rate starts to tick up. Those are my two cues that my body needs to feel through something. Start to ask yourself, like, what are my body's cues? Sitting with your body, sitting in silence a little bit more. Oh, it's the most annoying thing. Sitting in silence and like staring at a wall and feeling the sensations in your body. It's annoying, but it works. And it really tunes you into when you need to move through a feeling instead of reaching for the credit card, right? Reaching for the submit payment on whatever site you're on. So what this also brings me to is financial self-care is spending money on stuff that supports you and not spending money on things that don't. Okay, so another way to practice financial self-care is to assess your baseline. Assess what you are currently putting money towards. And do this by putting everything on the table. Put every single thing you spend money on the table, on the chopping block. And then you're going to decide what is a fuck yes and what can fall away. A tool that you can use in times of change, transition, or crisis is by lowering your baseline, which is lowering your expenses, lowering the money that's going out. Now, you all know that I am not a fan of cutting expenses as the only money tool we use for financial wellness. Increasing expenses is a wonderful thing. Increasing your income alongside increasing your expenses is a wonderful thing. Spending more money on things that support you and that you love is a wonderful thing. But sometimes during change and transition and crisis, it supports your nervous system to lower your expenses because it gives you more breathing room, more wiggle room, and can help your brain get on board with the thought, I am financially safe. I am financially safe. I'm in control of my money. I'm in control of my money. Okay? So you can use this as a tool for a season. So for example, if you are in between jobs, in between gigs, right? Or you're in a job transition. I have a lot of clients that I've worked with through job transitions and having times where a paycheck wasn't coming in, where an invoice wasn't getting paid, right? Times of space between paychecks. One of the tools that sometimes we would utilize is let's lower your expenses, right? So sometimes that would be as simple as like removing some subscriptions that they didn't super use, right, all the time, or just being more conscious and aware of when they were swiping their card and when they were spending money, i.e. on eating out, on coffee, like being more intentional about their spending. And just with more intentionality, their expenses lowered, right, when they weren't in YOLO fuck it mode, when they weren't in blackout mode. But the other thing you can do when I say put everything on the chopping block, I have a client right now who's they're most likely going to move, right, out of their current housing because it's a large expense and they want more wiggle room financially. So they're going to do that in order to give themselves some breathing room. So they're going to lower their expenses by moving to a different kind of home. So putting that on the chopping block and seeing what comes up. So when I do this, I'm going to put my apartment on the chopping block, but every single time I put it on the chopping block, I'm like, I fucking love my apartment. I love that I pay a premium to live in New York City. I love this city and I love living here. And I love this physical apartment. And compared to all the other places that I could live in the city, this is still the best deal for what we get. And I'm obsessed with it. So I'm saying yes to spending that amount of money, but I'm letting myself put it up for debate. Because what that does is it helps you solidify your excitement about what you're putting money towards. But then it also makes it clear when you're putting everything on the table, what are fuck yeses and what are like, I don't know, not really. This isn't as exciting as this other thing. So maybe it's subscriptions, maybe it's a gym membership, maybe it's how you're just like putting money towards things discretionarily, like on groceries. Like, I don't know. There's so many things that would come up for you as you're assessing your baseline. So go through all of your spending and see, are there things that, even if you don't want to remove them forever, that you would remove for a season? This is a really great exercise as well. If you're like, I don't know, would I miss it? Would I not? Okay, remove it. This wouldn't super work for moving cities or moving apartments, but pretty much anything else. Cool. Remove it for 3 months or remove it for 1 month and see at the end of a month, did you miss it? Like I did this for a while with meal kits. I was eating meal kits and like doing the HelloFresh, the Blue Apron, all of that. And I was like, let me cut it out and see what happens. Cause it's kind of feeling overwhelming, but like I haven't not gotten meal kits for a while. So what would I do? And I removed it and I was like, I don't miss it at all. I'm actually really vibing with like very simple meals. Right. So that's an example of something you could do. I had a client who they are really into their Pilates, right? And massages. And I was like, let's choose one of them and remove it for a month and see what happens, right? Because we were working on lowering their expenses. And so they removed massages and they were like, okay, that actually was not that hard. Like, I'm actually totally fine with it. But I think I want to add back in 1 massage a month. Great. Awesome. But now you have data. Now you've assessed and you've gotten clear and you've again signed off and given yourself the seal of approval of like, I love how I'm spending every bit of this money. That is financial self-care. Going back over your money and getting so clear on your money is financial self-care. Because when you understand your numbers, you can pep talk yourself with real facts. You can give yourself confirmation and affirmation with the real facts and findings, okay? So the other thing about this is if you are able to get clear on what it costs to live as you month to month to month, and maybe you've lowered your expenses a little bit, right? So now it costs like $2,500 a month to live as you, right? Your bills, your normal spending. And then you can look at your opportunity fund, right? And you see, okay, I've got $10,000 in my opportunity fund, and I see that I have $7,500 in my 3 months ahead on bills fund. So because you know your numbers so clearly, another way to do financial self-care is whenever you're freaking out about money, you can pull up your bank accounts and say, look, we know it costs us $2,500 a month to live. And you have 3 months ahead on bills right there. You got 3 months of expenses. No matter what happens, you can afford this for 3 months. And guess what? On top of that, you have $10,000 in your opportunity fund. So you can go and get that hotel. Or like, it is okay to go get that massage, right? It is okay to spend a little bit more this month because you got a little buffer there because of what you're going through, right? You can pep talk yourself with actual facts. So now, what this leads me to is the reason that financial wellness and prioritizing your money is so important for times like these, so that you do have 3 months of expenses sitting in a savings bucket, so that you do have an opportunity fund that you can utilize. Now, this doesn't mean that all of this goes out the window if you don't have that money sitting in those buckets. I've had 2 clients actually where we worked on, they accrued some debt during times of crisis. There was one who accrued debt during a job layoff, right? And then she was going back to school to get a different degree to then transition into a career path she was really excited about, accrued debt. And then another client went through a breakup and had to move out, get her own apartment and furnish it, right? Both were holding debt. And so what we worked on was having so much gratitude for the fact that there was a line of credit available to them to utilize during a time of crisis, and how incredible it is that their current selves can now take care of their past selves who needed to use a line of credit during a time of crisis. Okay, so all of this still maintains if you don't have the money in the bank in order to be able to take care of yourself. Because at the end of the day, y'all, the whole reason we work on money is so that you can support your mental health and your physical health and like your life on this earth so that you're okay. So that's always going to be priority. So whatever you need to do to be okay, that has to take precedence right now. That absolutely has to take precedence right now. And if you're in a position where you're like, I need to put this burden on future me, do it. If that is what you need to do to be okay right now, that is okay. Because you can trust your future self to then sit down and be like, all right, I'm going to take care of you. I've got you. I'm going to automate this debt payoff plan, and I'm going to increase my income so I've got more money to put towards my savings while I pay off this debt, and I'm going to be intentional with my numbers, and I'm going to continue to sit down and look at them. Even if I'm accruing debt right now, or even if I'm in a season of spending, I promise myself to stay aware of my money, because I know if I'm aware of my money, I will always be financially okay, because I'm always going to put myself in a place of financial wellness if I am staying in awareness, okay? Financial self-care equals financial awareness. This is why you prepare. To go back to my initial statement, this is why during times where you're not in crisis, to buffer yourself, to make sure you are in a surplus, to put yourself into a season of saving so that when you enter into a season of spending, you have the money there that you can utilize. This is why. Your money is your biggest supporter, okay? Your money is your biggest supporter, and it is not at war with you. It wants to be there for you. It wants to help you. You want to help you. So if you can put that thought into your brain right now of, I am not at war with my money, I am so excited to develop a relationship with my money where my money can help me when I'm feeling stressed, when I'm feeling anxious, and that my anxiety or that life or a crisis time does not butt up against my money and my financial wellness, that they actually get to support me during that. That's what I want for you. I know that a lot of times it feels like the life you want and what life is requiring of you is at war with your finances. It is absolutely not at war with your finances. What's at war with your finances is your avoidance of looking at it and making the changes that need to be made so that your finances can be a supporter for you with the life that you want. Okay, I'm going to say that again. The awareness around your finances is the thing that's lacking, that's making you feel like these things are at odds. Okay. And so financial awareness is financial self-care. And financial awareness is much simpler than maybe it feels like. Financial awareness doesn't mean you have to put yourself on a budget. Financial awareness doesn't mean you have to go on a ramen diet. Financial awareness doesn't mean that you never get to have your fun to-go coffee ever again. Financial awareness means you're looking at your money. You're signing off on the things you're doing with your money, saying yes to them, and then making decisions about how you want to move forward with your money if you don't like what's showing up in your bank accounts. It's as simple as that. Does that mean it's necessarily easy to do every single day? No, but it is that simple. And it does get easier. Okay, it does. So I hope this was helpful. I am sending everyone so much fucking love right now. Utilize your money right now to support yourself. Stay in financial awareness. Financial self-care is one of the juiciest ways you can care for yourself during a time like this. I hope you get to take a bath this week. I hope you get to take lots of naps. I hope you are able to take off a shift from work if you need to. And I will talk to you all next week. Love you, love you, love you. Thanks so much for tuning in. Come join me on Instagram for more on how to build a simple, sexy relationship with your money. My Instagram handle is @NotStarvingArtists. And if you want to dive deeper with me, head to the show notes to learn more about one-on-one coaching. If you love this episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend that you want to get rich with.